BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The Hollywood actor Alec Baldwin is to be charged with involuntary manslaughter over the fatal shooting of a cinematographer on a film set in 2021. He faces up to 18 months in jail if convicted. Sophie Long reports.
Prosecutors say Alec Baldwin will be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was in charge of weapons on set, faces the same charges. The assistant director, David Halls, who is reported to have told Baldwin the gun was safe, has agreed to plead guilty to negligent use of a deadly weapon. In a statement, the prosecutor for the state of New Mexico said if any one of these 3 people had done their job, Helena Hutchins would be alive today. It's that simple.
Pledges of military aid to Ukraine have been building up after Kiev warned Russia was preparing a new assault. 9 countries have promised to urgently step up supplies of heavy weaponry. The chair of the NATO Military Committee, Admiral Rob Bauer, said tanks were crucial to helping Ukraine move forward in the conflict.
In a war like it is being fought, every type of equipment is necessary. And the Russians are fighting with tanks, so the Ukrainians need tanks as well. In terms of matching what the enemy has, it is important for the Ukrainians. And in terms of their ambition to regain their own territory, what was taken from the Russians, a tank is an important weapon system.
On Friday, Kiev's allies will hold a key meeting aimed at boosting military support. The United States has hit its borrowing limit, setting the stage for a standoff between President Biden and the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. Officials have begun emergency measures to prevent a default until early June, but the Treasury Secretary has warned the situation remained uncertain. The Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, said a solution can be reached.
Periodically, the debt ceiling has to be lifted, and it's always a rather contentious effort. In the end, I think the important thing to remember is that America must never default on its debt. It never has and never will. But we'll end up in some kind of negotiation with the administration over what the circumstances or conditions under which the debt's going to be raised. I think this will have to be dealt with sometime in the first half of 2023.
Thousands of anti-government demonstrators are holding marches in the Peruvian capital, Lima. In several locations, lines of police officers have halted protesters demanding the resignation of President Dina Boluarte. People have been pouring into Lima from rural provinces in defiance of a state of emergency. Most are supporters of the previous president, Pedro Castillo, who was impeached and arrested after he tried to dissolve Congress. BBC News. The American singer-songwriter David Crosby has died at the age of 81. He was rhythm guitarist in the rock band The Byrds in the 1960s. He then also enjoyed commercial success as part of the folk rock group Crosby, Stills and Nash. His musical career was clouded by 9 months in a Texas prison for drugs offences. Crosby had a lifelong cannabis habit and keenly promoted its use for medicinal purposes. A judge in Bolivia has ruled that the conservative opposition leader Luis Camacho must remain in custody for 4 months while he awaits trial. Mr. Camacho was arrested last month on charges of terrorism linked to the social unrest that caused the then-president Evo Morales to flee Bolivia in 2019. The President of Sierra Leone has signed into law an act which guarantees women equal pay and greater representation in government and business. The Minister for Gender and Children said the new law would free women from the economic and political shackles that had held back development. Here's Umaru Fofana.
With effect from today, among other things, 30% of government and private sector jobs are protected for women. The law also says that 30% of senior jobs at the decision-making level in both the private and public sectors should also be ring-fenced for women. Women will now have also a 14-week-long maternity leave, which currently stands at 12 weeks. Now, but the clause for a mandatory 30% safe parliamentary seats for women was expunged by Parliament. Generally, women here feel this is really a watershed moment for them.
A new study has shown the number of stars visible in the night sky has declined dramatically over the past decade. The cause is light pollution from artificial sources. The scientists behind the study say this could be mitigated by carefully directed lighting that doesn't shine up into space. BBC News.